The Renaissance, a term that means rebirth, represents a period of cultural awakening in which the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and Rome were rediscovered. The Renaissance began in Florence in Tuscany in roughly the late 14th century. A distinguishing characteristic of the Renaissance is humanism, a movement to revive classical learning such as Latin and Greek literary and historical texts, and that focused on human achievements rather than on the divine. Most humanist scholars were Christian. Eminent among them is Erasmus of Rotterdam, who developed important new Latin and Greek translations of the New Testament. Scholarship in this period received a tremendous boost from the invention of the printing press around 1440 by Johannes Gutenberg. Some of history's greatest and most enduring achievements in the arts have their roots in the Renaissance. Master artists of this period celebrated the beauty of God's creation, especially visible in humanity. Supported by wealthy patrons such as Medics of Florence and by popes, these artists created works of immense beauty. Music also saw new developments during the Renaissance with the emergence of new liturgical forms and sacred music. The best-known composer of the period was Palestrina, whose musical compositions had a lasting influence on the development of liturgical music. In his youth, Palestrina was a spiritual disciple of Saint Philip Neri, the Apostle of Rome, and under his spiritual guidance gained an insight into the spirit of the liturgy that later influenced his music. A visit through Italy today, particularly Rome and Florence, would reveal some of the greatest architectural achievements of the Renaissance. St. Peter's Basilica has the largest interior of any church in the world.
Although the Council of Trent had little effect in unseating Protestantism in countries where it had taken hold as the established branch of Christianity, the council yielded much fruit for the church.
As a young man, Ignatius was a soldier with thoughts of fighting heroic battles. When a serious injury left him bedridden for a period of time, Ignatius began to examine his life. With time on his hands, he began reading about St. Francis and St. Dominic. He realized that living a life for God gave him meaning. Like St. Francis, he abandoned his military life and committed himself to a life of labor for God. He began to study and became a priest. Teresa of Avila entered the convent at a young age. She realized that the monastery was supposed to be a place for contemplation and prayer instead of a place of materialism and superficial preoccupations. Teresa soon established a convent of her own in Avila, Spain. The women who joined Teresa were encouraged to make Jesus the center of their lives. These sisters became known as the Carmelites, named for the simplicity of their footwear.
As the teachings of the Council of Trent became absorbed into the life of the church, many holy people took up the call to make real the council's reforms at all levels of the church.
The Protestant Reformation was taking place in Luther and other reforms, and their adherents were separated from Rome. Many who remained loyal to the Catholic Church and the Pope were also seeking reform. The Church's official response came in the form of ecumenical council, the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent brought about what is now called the Catholic Reformation. The council clarified and defined many points of the Church's doctrine that had not been precisely defined to this point. The council effected many critical reforms that shaped the worldwide church for centuries to come. The following points summarize some of the key decrees of the Council of Trent: Creed, Scripture, Original Sin, Justification, Sacraments, and Eucharist.
The Protestant Reformation was a religious reform movement that swept through Europe in the 1500s. It resulted in the creation of a branch of Christianity called Protestantism, a name used collectively to refer to the many religious groups that separated from the Roman Catholic Church due to differences in doctrine. The Protestant Reformation began in Wittenberg, Germany on October 31st, 1517, when Martin Luther, a teacher and a monk, published a document he called Disputation on the Power of Indulgences, or 95 Theses. The document was a series of 95 ideas about Christianity that he invited people to debate with him. These ideas were controversial because they directly contradicted the Catholic Church's teachings.